On screen, a British romantic comedy with an American as the heroine in Man Up.
She works in the city. I mean, what does that even mean? When people say that, what does that mean?
A Romeo and Juliet story set in Vanuatu on Tanna Island.
Most of them hadn't actually seen a film before, so we had to have a way of conveying, you know, what we're trying to achieve.
And rugby. No, not the World Cup, the Bingham Cup, an international competition for gay rugby players.
The film is almost homoerotic. The way you've shot it, was that deliberate?
Yeah, it was.
Hello and welcome to Screen. And I think we've got some really interesting stuff this week, Graeme.
We do, Margaret, some really interesting stuff. And we have Tegan.
Yes, you do.
Tegan, what do you have for us?
I'm really excited about this, and I've been waiting for this moment. I'm going to show you my favourite thing.
Your favourite thing?
On the whole of the internet.
The whole of the internet, your favourite thing?
Yeah, and it doesn't even have Tom Hardy in it. It is a miracle.
A miracle.
Well, I'm going to look forward to that because you've had some pretty terrific stuff in the past.
And it tops them, I promise you.
Can't wait. Well, a new Australian film, Tanna, took 2 major awards at the recent Venice Film Festival. Best Director of Photography for Bentley Dean and an Audience Award. And it's about to open in Australia. The film is based on a true story of forbidden love between Wawa, Marie Wawa, and Dane, the grandson of her chief, played by Mungar Day. But to avert the possibility of war with the neighbouring tribe, Wawa is promised to the son of the rival chief. Helped by Wawa's sister Celine, Marceline Roford, the young lovers flee their tribal lives and culture to be together.
Welcome, Martin Butler and Bentley Dean. Now, this is an astonishing achievement and must have been an incredible, almost fairy tale journey for the two of you. Where did it all begin?
We're in between projects, and I say to Martin, well, how about we just make a feature film? And I know this place called Tanna, it's really cool, let's do it.
So you didn't go there to make a documentary, you went there specifically to do a feature film?
To make some sort of feature film, yes.
Well, you must have known about the true story on which this is based.
No. It was a select the location and environment first. Story will come out of that.
The first thing that we did was actually just talk to the community. Once we'd sort of made the arrangements with them, which was all sort of fairly complicated and slow and patient, you know, you had to sort of go in under the right terms and, you know, make sure that they knew what was going on and that they knew what they were committing to. But once that had been set up and we moved into the village, we just talked for, you know, 2 or 3 months where we were absorbing the sort of the culture, learning all we could about the culture and constructing the story with them.
This is a community that has decided absolutely to live the way they've always lived, despite the incursion of the Western world into their country.
That's right. At a certain, our preconceived ideas, because we did have them, of course, was that we would do something a bit like 10 Canoes, like set it before Europeans had arrived. But it quickly became apparent, no, this is much more interesting. The fact that they have chosen, just like half an hour down the road is the main town. They know about the outside world, and yet they're choosing to live the way in which their ancestors have always lived. And I think that I don't even actually know where that's happened elsewhere in the world.
What's amazing to me is that you've got this community. You don't know whether they can act, do you?
No.
I mean, if you're going into your first
remarkable.
fiction feature, you're doing it in a pretty brave way.
Yeah.
I mean, because they're natural performers.
There is not one performance that's not totally authentic.
That's true. But you're right, it was a risk, but we also knew that it would be a hell of a lot of fun. Which is almost the main motivation. Well, it was ours, actually.
Oh, was it?
So we started this off. We had no backing. This is just a punt. We had a little bit of leftover money in the from our last documentary and
couple of mad
good on you.
We had the gear. I mean, okay, here's the pitch to say Screen Australia. Like, we've never made a film before. We're working with people that nothing to do with Australia. No, not even speaking English.
There's the door.
And they've never acted before as well.
There's the
Are
door.
you in? You know, like,
Get out of here.
Can we have some money, please?
Let's talk about the photography, because it is an astonishing, magnificent piece of work. What cameras did you use? How did you set it up? Was there a big crew? How did you do this thing?
Yes, there was a big crew. It was myself on camera, Martin on sound, and when he wasn't there, one of the guys we were working with, JJ Nako, would do the sound. He was our translator, sort of like, you know, guru, basically. He very much made the film happen.
I'm not going to let you go before we talk about Marceline Moffat, because she is magic, that kid.
Yes.
I mean, did you know what you had on your hands with her?
She was my next-door neighbour.
Oh, right.
And actually wasn't part of our original treatment, but forced her way in through sheer force of personality.
You
and
can
it's like,
tell.
we have got to include her. And she's a show stealer. Like, everyone says the same.
I love that line, you know, where she's racing off and this little kid says, "She stole my penis sheath."
Says it all.
You can tell she's just brimming with life. Look, congratulations on the film, and really gutsy of you to, you know, take this on your own back, really.
Yeah.
I'm so glad it's paid off for you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. No, that was
Thanks a
great.
lot.
Kanina ito ko na ba? Inilam ko ta. Kapa ko chukon mi lupon ni kaban ko. Kami nga kan me ko ma si man kabalaw. Kani yakam lupon makapa ka man.
What an amazing achievement, really. But there's so much talent. Anthony Partos, music. Lisa Gerard, vocals.
With the vocals, yes.
And, you know, which really beautiful. And Tanna needs
and
editing.
the quality of the editing,
Yes.
amazing. Yeah.
It's stunning to look at. But what's, you know, really wonderful is this cultural context within which this love story takes place.
I think it kind of transcends that, even though it's kind of like a soaring hymn to the sheer power of love, regardless of that context. And it completely and utterly sucks you into that story, and you know, you just sit there transfixed as the story unfolds. It's quite an astonishing intellectual feat in so many ways.
Well, no, not only that, visually it's so luscious. I mean, that shot of the two lovers up against that volcano,
and it explodes behind them.
It's
just incredible. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I'm sort of
very
besotted with this film. I'm giving it 4 stars.
Well, I'm going a bit higher. I'm giving it 4.5, and I probably would have given it 5, except I think it is just maybe a tad long for some audiences. But it's a wonderful achievement, so it's 4.5 from me. You are mean. That is why 4? And now to Breakthrough, a National Geographic series of 6 documentaries, each of which has been directed by a significant filmmaking talent. First up is a film by director, actor and writer Peter Berg. He looked at the dangers posed by pandemics, in particular the curse of Ebola, the rampant virus which has claimed thousands of lives in recent years, and meets the extraordinary scientists doing their best to find a vaccine to beat it. Key to his film is the story of Dr. Ian Crozier, a World Health Organization virologist who contracted the virus while working in Sierra Leone. It almost killed him, but after 40 days of treatment in isolation in the USA, he was declared cured.
People have asked me often, were you afraid? Of course I was afraid. You know, I'd seen the natural history of this disease process play out many, many times.
Well, what did you think of this? It's a very different piece of science programming, isn't it?
Well, I thought, it's interesting that GE has really funded this series. And if they're all as good as this one, then I think we're in for a real treat. I think it's been really well done. It's so horrible, this disease. It's absolutely the one thing you don't want to get in this world. The explicit scenes of people suffering from Ebola are you know, heartbreaking. But the thing that I got out of this is this scientific effort. You know, the human brain, we are so capable of such brilliance and greatness. And yet we've got this world that is such a mess. It's sort of like this dichotomy that I don't get. And it was also interesting that Crozier got Ebola. It took him 40 days and he nearly died.
Shocking scenes, aren't they?
You know, really. It must have cost millions to keep him alive. And
well, he was
then,
a scientific experiment in his own right at that point.
But then later, he's got this problem with his eye. And it turns out that he's got the Ebola virus in his eye, which is the area in your body that is, you know, least resistant.
Well, I enjoyed the formal aspects of it as well. You get the wonderful contrast between the almost science fiction-like scenes involving the science itself, then the found footage, the archival footage sometimes of the terrible results of the disease in the villages and so on. And it's all counterpointed by a series of motifs, particularly of blood dropping and blood spatter, which is treated in a rather abstract way. You can really see where the money's gone into this production.
I really like stuff like this that tells me something I want to know. 4.5 stars from me.
Well, I'm giving it 4.5 as well. This shows that science is terribly important and scientists must be listened to, and it must be at the centre of every national conversation.
Well, it is a celebration of that knowledge, yes.
From a high-budget film about Ebola to Uganda, where a low-budget filmmaker, Isaac Nabwana, is about to tackle the same issue with just $13,000 of crowdfunding. He's carved out a cult status for himself online and reportedly makes his films in the slums of Bukalia for less than $200 US. And these films are truly a labour of love. The props are made from scrap metal or wood, and the actors and crew donate their time for free. So while Isaac shoots his next film, Tebatsa Sula Ebola, you can watch his breakout film, Who Killed Captain Alex, on a site called Wakaliwood, home of Ugandan action films online, via the Wakaliwood website.
By the way, who killed Captain Alex? Europe, Portugal, Japan, Russia, America, Australia. You killed Captain Alex. We are coming for you. Yes, sir. Attack! New York City! Oh, no!
That's very, very funny.
Oh, what is it? I don't even know if it's meant to be that funny.
Margaret, what are you looking like that for?
Oh, it's not my sort of movie.
What I
got to
loved
tell
is-
you.
Because when I saw that, I was like, that is Margaret Pomerantz through and through.
That is Margaret
Yeah.
Pomerantz.
Just, I love the way they all pile into this obviously cardboard tank or
Yes.
helicopter or whatever it is.
Venice
No.
Film Festival Award.
Oh,
Easy.
definitely.
But the other thing that I thought was interesting is that they make these films. I can't believe they're feature films, and they go door to door selling them quickly, so they're not pirated.
I know, that's
and I
the
went,
thing.
third world country, first world problem. Tegan, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Romantic comedies seem to be the preserve of the Americans because they can do them so well. But with Man Up, the Brits have entered the fray. However, they've cast an American as the heroine. Lake Bell achieves a credible British accent as Nancy, a 34-year-old klutz who's single, from the way she goes about it, likely to remain so. On a train en route to her parents' 40th wedding anniversary, she's bailed up by Jessica, Ophelia Lovimont, who raves about a book she's reading that is the connecting link with the blind date she's about to meet. When she leaves the book on the train, Nancy rushes after her, straight into Jack, Simon Pegg, Jessica's intended date.
So, book, check, and clock, check, and blind date, check.
Well, I laughed out loud at a lot of this film. I think the two leads do the rom-com dance steps and the rapid-fire repartee pretty well, but underneath it all, they're very real, very credible, and I thought pretty sympathetic human beings faced with that much daunted activity called dating, which at a certain age I always think is like God's punishment for the way that you've broken up your own marriage.
Well, when I saw this, I thought, it's not a laugh a minute, a rom-com, but it's a smile a minute. And she is so engaging, Lake Bell. I mean, you'd never think that Simon Pegg would be a romantic lead, but he's actually really sweet in this.
He's very believable, isn't he?
And I actually thought it got at some... I know I'm pathetic, but I think it did get at some sort of truth and real pain about being single and, you know, the difficulty of finding someone that you really get along with. And it's a debut screenplay by Tess Morris, so you think, I'm looking forward to seeing what she comes
Well,
up
I'm
with
giving
next.
this 4 stars. I think the Brits have done a terrifically credible job at the rom-com, something they've not been fabulously good at before, so I'm marking it up a little bit on what I'd originally thought. I'm giving it 4.
Really?
Yes, I am.
Well, I am too.
Oh, really?
4.
All right. After the break, we've got gay rugby.
And metal detecting.
Now for a documentary about rugby. But before you all roll your eyes and turn off, this is not about any old rugby game. It's about an international gay rugby competition, the Bingham Cup, and a team called the Sydney Convicts. The Bingham Cup is named for an openly gay American rugby player, Mark Bingham, who died on United Airlines Flight 93 on September 11, 2001. This film tracks the competition through the eyes of the Sydney Convicts, a team that has lost just about every local match in the run-up to the Cup. But they are the Cup holders and determined to keep the crown. Equally revealing is the story of gay men and the battles they face playing a sport like rugby.
She's like, you can't stick with anything. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not like the sport was hard. Everything else was hard about it. There was always somebody putting me down or telling me I couldn't do it, even if I was good at it.
And it's really nice to have filmmaker Poppy Stockell join us on the show. Poppy, I was really welcome first, and I was really interested in the fact that you're a woman venturing into this very male world.
Yeah, it was...
Backstage, what's more.
Yeah, right in the thick of it, right in the smelly boots and sweaty jocks.
How did you get involved in this?
So I made a film about the Sydney Convicts in 2006, I think it was, when they went on their first tournament to New York. So when the team won the right to host the Bingham Cup in Sydney, the organisers of the competition asked me if I would be interested in making another film, and I was.
Well, you focus on really three main players, don't you, in this film?
Yeah.
Did they emerge, or did you sort of sort out who you wanted to focus on at the start?
Well, they sort of emerged, actually. So I was hanging around at training and going to some games. And I instantly picked out Aki, the Japanese man, because I found out that he had Googled gay and rugby, and the Sydney Convicts came up in his search, and he'd saved for 2 years to create the funds to come to Sydney. He jumped on a plane, arrived on a Wednesday, started training on a Thursday and played on a Saturday. And that story blew me away. So I knew I wanted to focus on Aki. Pierce was on the sideline, always avoiding training. He was always retying his shoes and pulling up his socks, and he was really funny. So
yes, he's like the comic character, isn't he, in some ways?
Absolutely, comic relief, jolly, chubby, and had never played rugby before and had fibbed when they asked him if he had.
You're not doing me hard enough. Ow.
And his story was amazing. And then Brennan's really good looking, and it's a visual medium. So
he's like a film star.
Yeah, he's gorgeous.
The film is almost homoerotic, the way you've shot it. Was that deliberate?
Yeah, it was. Well, so often it's women under the male gaze, and I sort of wanted to turn that on its head. Claire Dennis I'm a big fan of hers, especially Beau Travail. And, yeah, that was a massive inspiration for the film. So it was my sort of opportunity to really unpack and explore masculinity and male form. And these guys are sort of in the prime of their lives. They're training and playing 3 times a week. It's a physical game. So, I sort of really wanted to explore their masculinity and identity and sexuality.
But even though they're so tough and so masculine, they're men that have had a lot of trouble fitting in.
A lot of trouble fitting in. A lot of these guys had been turned away from straight teams or teams they didn't feel comfortable in teams. So when they find the Convicts, it's sort of this safe haven of blokes. But it's rugby first, 100% rugby first, and sexuality second.
Aki sort of seems supremely confident that the other two have had, real problems, as
shocking
as
times
kids.
in their lives, yes.
And I thought it was interesting, that story of being a member of a straight team and not being openly discriminated against, but being subtly discriminated against.
He loves rugby, and I think when the rumours were going around the club, this is Brennan, that, he was gay and he didn't feel wanted, I think that really, crushed his spirit. So finding the Convicts was, I think for him a bit of a dream come true.
There are plenty of ideas, many ideas in this film, but you tie it all rather brilliantly, I thought, together with the almost electronic disco score. Tell us a little bit about that. I love that.
Well, amazingly, Colin Stetson scored the film, and he's a touring band member of Bon Iver and Arcade Fire, and he actually scored The Rover, or parts of The Rover. And I saw him play in Sydney at the Sydney Festival, and he's a friend of my partner's. And so when I asked him to score Scrum, he amazingly had a window of, a month off. And I hadn't known that he'd scored 12 Years a Slave, or parts of 12 Years a Slave, and I don't think I would have asked him. I wouldn't have asked him if I'd known that. I don't think I would have had the guts to sort of request him, but he said yes.
Poppy, listen, thank you so much for joining us on the show, and congratulations on your film.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
When there was doubters about whether this club could even be formed, it was fuck you, yes we can attitude that built the whole fucking club. Convicts forever, forever a fucking convict. Thank you very much.
She's really lovely, isn't she? And very insightful.
Thoroughly, intelligent and perceptive about her own work, I thought.
Yeah, and wasn't she lucky to get that muso?
Oh, it makes a huge difference. It's a terrific score, very clever.
Do you know what I felt about this film? That I really enjoyed that female gaze on the male body. And I mean, because there's an aesthetic to it. They're actually quite beautiful, these young men who are at the peak of their, physical existence. And, she uses a lot of slow-mo in the film.
Yes, there's a lot of slow-mo,
and you can really appreciate the aesthetic of it. And I think the stories are really insightful as well.
Yes, I was fascinated too by the way that she deals with the idea that being gay means, or doesn't mean that you have to compromise on masculinity in any way, sort of confronting those, still abundant prejudices. I thought that was very clever, and there are moments in it that are intensely moving when they talk, particularly when the central men talk about their lives and the suffering they've in fact been through for such big guys, such masculine men through their lives in the company of the other rugby players in the locker room. I found those couple of scenes just really quite extraordinary.
There are gay rugby players, in straight teams in this country, and they're overtly. So, I think it's a shame that, these gay guys have had to form a team of their own to feel safe. It ought to be, hey guys, whatever your sexuality, you can play in a team, which is, what one of them in the film could not do.
Well, I was very impressed overall with both its entertainment value and the range of ideas that it encompasses and the sheer stylishness with which it's put together. I'm giving this 4.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you.
Yes, Margaret! Go, convicts!
4 stars. Well, the British certainly have a knack for coming up with distinctly eccentric television comedies. The latest, showing on BBC First, is Detectorists. Lance, Toby Jones and Andy Mackenzie Crook spend all their spare time wandering over the Essex countryside with metal detectors, hoping to find an artefact that will lead to an historic discovery.
Anything? Fuck all. 3 shotgun caps and a Blakey.
They're not particularly lucky. They tend to find discarded rubbish from more recent times. And then they find a farmer who'd previously not allowed anyone on his land. Uncharted territory. Lance is separated from his wife. Luckily, Andy's live-in girlfriend, Becky, Rachel Sterling, is remarkably tolerant about how much time the 2 men spend together.
You are always staring at the ground.
Oh, I'm not.
I bet you'd be amazed at the things you've missed.
Well, who would have thought that a little comedy about a couple of rather strange blokes listening to the ground with headphones on would be so incredibly amusing. This is a little treasure, I think, a comic treasure about blokes hunting for treasure, a pastoral comedy that's absolutely infused with a wonderful sense of nostalgia. I just love this little series.
Well, it won a BAFTA for screenwriting, but, Mackenzie Crook, who plays in this, was the writer and director of it. So, and he's got this lugubrious presence.
Well, we first saw him in The Office, I think, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then, of course, he's become a big star in the pirate films, and and he turned his back, I gather, on the last pirate movie to make another series of this.
Do you mean it's going again?
Yes, there's more series. I think it'll go...
No, I think it's actually very popular. But I mean, aren't the Brits weird? I mean, truly.
Well, weirdness
really
goes right back to the beginnings of television, with, as you say, with these strange double acts.
And you've got an actor of the stature of Toby Jones, you know, in this.
Yes,
really.
fine actor. Terrific actor. And he's just wonderful in this because he's so unsympathetic. He's such a sort of doltish, strange little man.
I like the way they keep on finding stuff in the thing, and that it's a model car.
I've got something! I've got something!
And then they find...
It's a bit of a beer can. Oh, well. Oh, keep it. All right,
it's a Chrysler from...
That's right. It's just so... They would think we'd be laughing at this.
I'm not sure that I would become addicted to this, but I'm sure a lot of other people will. I think there's a limit to my appreciation of eccentric comedies.
No, I love it as an eccentric comedy. In fact, I loved it so much, I'm going to give this a 4. I think it's just perfectly made for what it is. I can't imagine anyone else doing anything different with this. It is just like a perfect little piece of television.
Well, if it's a perfect little piece of television, why aren't you giving it 5 stars?
Well, because they haven't found anything good yet. All they find are those bloody bottle tops. I want them to find the treasure of King Arthur. Then I'll give them 5.
They're looking for a dead king, remember?
Oh, that's right, they are.
I'm giving it 3.5.
Rob Cantor is an American singer-songwriter who specialises in creating viral videos. Now, my job on this show is to try and find the best of the internet, and this clip by Rob Cantor is the very best, in my opinion. The video made in conjunction with the Gay Man's Chorus of Los Angeles, titled Actual Cannibal Shia LaBeouf. It features a live performance with interpretive dance, a full orchestra, and the West LA Children's Choir singing about one man's escape from Shia LaBeouf, who was trying to murder and eat him.
It's Shia LaBeouf, lurking in the shadows. Hollywood superstar Shia LaBeouf, living in the woods. Shia LaBeouf, killing for sport. Shia LaBeouf, eating all the bodies. Actual cannibal Shia LaBeouf.
Yay! I can't believe he pulled all those resources together to make a 3.5-minute clip.
Yeah,
I mean, it's extraordinary.
It just looks brilliant, doesn't it? Absolutely,
well,
like
just
a
for the
Brechtian
net
production.
too.
Yes, I know, just for the... And he did it all by himself, you know, because you look at the previous work that he's done and it's such a small-scale thing, and he clearly, for this song, just went, no, I'm going all out, and he really did.
But at least you know how to pronounce his name now.
But that's the thing.
Yeah, I've been calling him LaBeouf.
I've been calling him LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf.
Well, that's how it's spelt. You know, like the French, the meat, the beef. But I saw Cantor's other one where he impersonates 19 singers, 19 people.
You and I will always belong.
So give a little sing to your song.
I mean, he's obviously a talent.
This is one of my favourite things. I watch it on a very regular basis.
Once again, Tegan, thank you.
Not at all, thank you.
Thank you, Tegan. That was one of your bestest ever.
The best. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thanks for joining us on screen. See you next week.
We will.
We will.